Hey there guys, gals, and non-binary pals, GM Potter here, and today we will be going over The Color Purple by Alice Walker. So this book came out in 1982. It is a banned book, which I always like to try and read banned books when I can. It has been both banned and challenged due to the subject matter, as well as the language. So it does have a 4.24 on Goodreads. I would give it a solid 5 stars. Is it worth reading? That, I would say yes, but I would also say that I can probably only stand to read it once. I think for this one, once is enough. It's worth reading. I think everybody should read it, but I don't think it's one that you would necessarily go back to again and again and again, and we'll get into that. So our two main characters, as far as storytelling goes, are Sally, who is our main character, and then we have her younger sister Nettie. The book is written as a series of letters, first by Sally to God, and then between the two sisters. Once we switch over to letters from Nettie, the first dozen or so were not responded to because Sally's husband had been hiding the letters from her sister for years, as it turns out, and then they write back and forth to each other. The last letter actually made me cry when I read the last letter. It's addressed to Dear God, dear stars, dear trees, dear sky, dear peoples, dear everything, dear God. And it just, the ending is so bittersweet that it is a happy ending, but it's a bittersweet happy ending. Alrighty, so before we get into this, I do have to say a massive spoiler warning, as well as issue a trigger warning, content warning for incest, rape, and domestic violence, which is the main reason this book has been banned, is for those themes, as well as some themes we'll get into a little later. It's an important story to tell. It's a hard story to tell. It's a hard story to read. There are several points during the story where I set it down and I wasn't sure if I was going to pick it up again or not. Sally, our main character, writes her prayers to God to escape her horrible home life. She has a father figure who rapes and beats her and beats her siblings and is looking at her younger sister Nettie as his next victim. She has 2 children by him who he takes away from her. She thinks he kills them and buries them somewhere. As it turns out, he actually gives them to another family in town. Additionally, he is not her father. Her father was actually lynched. He's her stepfather, which doesn't make it any better. It doesn't. And the fact that he was presenting himself as his father while he was doing these horrible things to her, I think makes it worse, actually. He marries her off to a man who originally wanted to marry her younger sister, but the father figure wants to keep the sister for himself. The man that Sally marries also beats her. It's not described as rape in this situation, but it is in fact marital rape. At no point does she consent, at no point is she enthusiastic about it, at no point is she a willing participant in it. It just kind of happens, and she feels like she has no choice but to let it happen. Nettie runs away. She stays with them, but she leaves when Sally's husband starts putting advances on her. She actually takes up with the family. She doesn't realize it at the time, but the family that takes her in is actually the same family that took in Sally's children. And Sally's husband is unfaithful to her for reasons that aren't gone into, but I think it has to do with the beatings. Sally can't have children anymore, and her husband's children are not nice to her. His oldest son gets married and wants to learn how to keep his new wife, how to make her mind, and Sally, in a fit of jealousy, instructs him to beat her, which does not go well for him because she fights back. And it's hard to read. It's really hard to read. A jazz singer who Sally's husband used to be involved with comes into town and stays with them. She and Sally actually develop feelings for each other. It's not outright stated that they are lovers, but they are lovers, and she's also shares a bed with Sally's husband. And there are themes of lesbianism and of forbidden love, forbidden fruit in the book. It's kind of the living situation before Shug Avery, which is the jazz singer's name, leaves again as kind of a polyamory situation. Again, it's not called that, it's not talked about like that, but that's definitely the situation that we've got, which is the lesbianism and the polyamory are some of the reasons it's been contested. When Shug Avery, the jazz singer, leaves, she takes Sally with her and sets her up in her house, right across the hall from her room. They stay together, and then the man who she thought was her father, who was her stepfather, passes away, and she actually inherits the house and all the land and the business and everything else. She was supposed to get it when her mother died, but for whatever reason her stepfather never told her that he was her stepfather, and he kept it to himself illegally. She goes about fixing up the house because Nettie's supposed to come home. There's one of the letters that she gets a telegram that the steamer ship that Nettie was supposed to be coming home on has actually been shot down by a German submarine. That ends up not being the case. Nettie, meanwhile, goes with the family that took her into Africa to be missionaries. The missionary's wife is very jealous of her. She sees that the children she took in look very much like her and thinks that perhaps she had a relationship with her husband, and accuses her of all of these things and eventually dies. Nettie takes up with the husband only after she dies. It's completely platonic until after she dies. And she brings him and Sally's 2 children back home, and they live together in the big house together. So it is a happy ending, but you don't, it almost feels like the author is making you earn the happy ending. Like I said, it's very hard to read. There's themes of racism. They're treated horribly. Nettie and Sally's father was lynched, so he doesn't even have a grave marker because he was lynched. It never goes into why. There's themes of domestic violence and sexual assault, and I'm not sorry I read it, but like I said, I don't think I will be reading it again. I think it is worth reading, but it's only if you are mentally and emotionally strong enough to get through the subject matter. If you don't think you are, there's no shame in not reading it. But I do think if you are in a headspace to get through the book, it's worth reading. So, have you read The Color Purple? Let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you thought of it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!